All right, Talk Tickers listeners, you know what time it is. It's time for another deep dive, and you guys sent this one in. We are going to be looking at Coca-Cola's Q3 2024 earnings call.
So, Coke products in hand, we can jump into this.
Yeah.
This is a company that's really navigating a wild global landscape right now and kind of coming out on top.
Yeah, they did a lot better than analysts were expecting.
Right. Yeah, they exceeded expectations, 9% organic revenue growth.
That's huge.
Yeah, and especially when you consider that unit case volume was actually down 1%.
So they sold less product.
Yeah, they sold less product, but they made more money.
So what's going on there? I think that's what everybody wants to know.
Well, that's a sign of a really smart strategy for sure.
Right. And also, they had that slump in July. Remember, they came out and said July was a rough month?
Yeah.
And then it looks like they really turned things around pretty quickly.
Yeah, they saw monthly improvements after that. And actually, trademark Coca-Cola defied the volume trend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so even when money's tight, people still want that classic Coke.
Right. There's a lot of brand loyalty there.
Yeah, it says a lot.
It's funny. It's almost like the beverage equivalent of comfort food in a way.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. And then also, part of it is their price mix, right? Like they really nailed that price mix strategy, and they saw a 10% price mix growth.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that is something that's really key to understanding how they performed. But I think it's also a little bit of a mystery for some people. Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. You see that phrase, price mix, in these reports. And it's like, okay, but how does that actually break down? Mm-hmm. Think of it this way. Imagine, you have a lemonade stand.
Yeah, classic.
Right. You have your classic lemonade, and then you introduce like a fancy premium lemonade with organic lemons, and you put like a sprig of mint in there or something.
Yeah, make it fancy.
Make it fancy, right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up selling a little bit less overall, but because that premium lemonade costs more, you actually make more money.
Interesting.
So it's kind of like that.
Okay, so they're introducing these higher margin products.
Exactly.
So even if the sales volume dips a little bit, they're still bringing in more revenue.
Right. In this case, 7% of that growth came from pricing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a mix of, regular price increases and also adjustments due to currency fluctuations.
Okay.
And then the other 3% came from that favorable product mix with stronger growth in developed markets driving that shift.
Makes sense. But it makes me wonder about the sustainability of that, especially with, all this global economic uncertainty. How sustainable is this mix going to be, long term? And also I think about those currency fluctuations. We've seen the euro take a hit lately.
Right.
That's got to have some impact on them.
Yeah. You bring up a really important point because the sustainability of this mix depends on a lot of different factors. How are emerging markets going to perform compared to developed ones? Coca-Cola has what they call their all-weather strategy.
All-weather strategy.
Yeah, it's basically designed to help them thrive no matter what the economic climate's doing.
I like that. Sounds very resilient.
Yeah. But it's still a challenge, right? Like navigating these global headwinds, especially those foreign exchange challenges that you're talking about, is really tricky. It's a delicate balancing act. And I think, it's also important to remember that the impact of something like the euro devaluation on, European pricing is going to be different from how, say, Brazilian inflation affects their strategies there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So it's not just about global economics, it's about understanding all these regional dynamics too.
Right. So they're looking at a global picture, but then they have to break it down region by region and figure out, okay, what are the specific challenges and opportunities in each of these markets?
Yeah, exactly. Because, for some consumers, that classic Coke needs to stay affordable.
Trust, yeah.
But then, in other segments, they need to be able to tap into that demand for premium products. So it's really a tightrope walk. And, their success depends on them being able to understand each market and kind of the unique pressures and opportunities that each market presents.
It's almost like they're playing 4D chess.
Yeah.
With their pricing constantly adjusting to a million different factors.
Right. Yeah. They have to stay on top of it.
But it's not all, numbers and spreadsheets, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're also doing some really creative stuff on the marketing front.
Yeah, absolutely. Their revamped marketing model is a great example of that. Mm-hmm. They're blending, digital, live, and retail experiences, and it's working really well for them. They're seeing some big wins with that approach.
Yeah, look at the Olympics and the Paralympics. Their activations were phenomenal. It wasn't just like slapping a logo on something. Mm-hmm. They really captured the spirit of the games. They connected with people on an emotional level, and they reached millions of people globally.
And I think what's even more impressive is that they're able to replicate that success on a smaller scale, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So take Topo Chico, for example. Their experiential campaigns, they've really been focusing on food, music, art, and they've seen their volumes skyrocket almost 20% globally just this quarter.
Wow, that's amazing. I remember actually seeing one of those Topo Chico events here in my city. I think they had live music, local food trucks. There was even like a screen printing station where you could design your own like Topo Chico merch. It was super cool. It was a really cool vibe, and obviously people were into it.
That's the thing, right? They're not just selling a product, they're creating like an experience of feeling a connection.
Right, they're creating a whole world around it.
Exactly. And it's smart. It's smart marketing and it's working.
And they're not just, bringing back the old favorites. They're also trying new things, some hits, some misses.
Yeah.
But that willingness to experiment, I think, is key.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't be afraid to try new things, even if you stumble every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
You look at Fusa Tea and Minute Maid Zero Sugar.
Yeah.
Those are proving to be really successful additions to their lineup.
They are.
But then, they've also shown that they're not afraid to, pull the plug on things that aren't working, like Coca-Cola Spice.
Well, yeah.
So it's all about adapting and learning and constantly evolving.
It's almost like they're bringing that whole Silicon Valley move fast and break things philosophy to the beverage industry.
Yeah.
And in the process, they're also creating some buzzworthy products. I'm thinking about those limited edition releases, the Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Oreo.
Yeah.
And the Fanta Beetlejuice. I mean, those are interesting.
Those are innovative marketing tie-ins for sure.
Very creative.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're not stopping there. They've got Bacardi mixed with Coca-Cola coming out in 2025.
Yeah.
That's a big step into the alcoholic beverage space.
That's definitely something to keep an eye on. So now, we've talked about kind of the global picture. Why don't we focus in on North America specifically?
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they saw really impressive organic sales growth there, 12%, primarily driven by that price mix strategy we were talking about earlier.
So even in their most mature market,
right,
they're finding that sweet spot between those price increases and promoting these higher margin products.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, Fairlife, Topo Chico, alongside the Classic Coke.
Exactly. And Fairlife is actually making a significant contribution there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on track to become a billion-dollar brand.
Wow.
Yeah, and its premium positioning is really helping to drive that favorable mix that we've been talking about.
Interesting.
But here's what's really impressive to me. Even if you exclude Fairlife,
okay,
the North American business is still seeing strong growth.
So it's not just like one superstar product
Right.
that's carrying the whole region. They have a really solid foundation across the board.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so North America, things are looking pretty good. Now let's talk about the flip side of that. Emerging markets, they actually saw a volume decline this quarter.
Right.
What's going on there?
Yeah, and I think this is where those regional dynamics that we talked about earlier really come into play.
Okay.
I mean, India got hit with these heavy monsoons.
Yeah, that was rough.
China's facing some economic challenges. And of course, the ongoing conflict is still impacting Eurasia and the Middle East.
So it's kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah, it really is a mix of just some bad luck and some larger global trends that are making things difficult.
Right. But how much of this is external factors?
Yeah.
Right. And how much of it is Coca-Cola's, strategic decisions?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And that's where their agility really comes in. They have to tailor their approach to each of these markets.
Right.
They have to take into account all these unique challenges. One size fits all just doesn't work in this kind of environment.
No. So it makes you wonder how much of, these specific challenges are tied to these bigger global trends.
Right.
And what does it all mean for their long-term strategy? Are they just kind of reacting to each crisis as it comes up?
Right.
Or are they thinking 10 steps ahead?
It's a great question. And that brings us to, the really important topic of their future outlook. We're going to get more detailed 2025 guidance later on, but we can look at what we know now and get some insights.
Yeah, so give us the inside scoop. What can Talk Tickers listeners and Coke enthusiasts alike expect as we head into the new year?
Well, first, we can probably expect some pricing moderation in those really high inflationary markets.
Okay.
And the impact of currency devaluations should start to cycle out.
Okay.
So those are potential positives.
So a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Maybe, but there are still some challenges out there. Agricultural commodity prices are expected to remain volatile and high. Yeah, of course.
And that's an issue for any food and beverage company.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there's the IRS tax dispute and that upcoming Fairlife contingent consideration payment.
Yes.
Those are all things that are going to have an impact on their financials. And then on the currency front, they are anticipating a low single-digit headwind to comparable net revenues and a mid-single-digit headwind to comparable earnings per share for 2025.
Okay.
Assuming, current rates and hedge positions hold.
So currency is still going to be a factor,
Right.
but maybe not as dramatic as what we saw in 2024.
Right. And I think it's important to remember, John did emphasize this, things could change drastically between now and when they give their official guidance in February.
Right. Of course, always subject to change.
Right. So it's a constantly evolving situation. And Coca-Cola is going to have to continue to adapt quickly and strategically to whatever happens next.
That's kind of what they do, right?
Right. That's what their all-weather approach is all
That's
about.
their bread and butter. Yeah, they delivered comparable earnings growth for years, even when there were some pretty wild swings in the global economy.
Yeah.
So they're used to this kind of thing.
It's pretty impressive how they're not only riding the waves, but they're anticipating those waves.
Right.
And they're adjusting their sales accordingly. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving in a world that feels increasingly unpredictable.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this deep dive is so interesting, because Coca-Cola seems to find opportunities even when there are all these challenges.
It's like they're saying, hey, global turmoil, hold my Coke.
Well, yeah. I mean, their strategic pivots, their pricing mastery, their innovative marketing campaigns, it all points to a company that's not just reacting. They're shaping those market forces.
Right. And it's a good reminder for everyone listening that even a giant like Coca-Cola can't just afford to stand still. They have to keep evolving, keep experimenting, keep pushing boundaries if they want to stay on top.
And I think that's a lesson that goes way beyond just the beverage industry.
Yeah.
I mean, any company, any individual can learn from Coca-Cola's ability to adapt and innovate and connect with consumers on a really deep level.
So what should our listeners be paying attention to as they watch Coca-Cola's journey unfold?
I think a key thing to watch is that balance between short-term adjustments and long-term vision,
Okay.
They're making moves to address immediate challenges like inflation, currency fluctuations, but they're also laying the groundwork for future growth.
Yeah. And that foray into the alcoholic beverage market, that's a pretty bold move. That could really shake things up.
Absolutely, yeah. And it speaks to their willingness to take risks and explore new avenues for growth. They're not afraid to get out of their comfort zone. It's pretty impressive for a company that's already a global behemoth. They could just rest on their laurels and coast, but they're not.
Right. And I think that's why, despite all the uncertainty in the global landscape, there's still this sense of optimism surrounding Coca-Cola. They've weathered storms before. They always come out stronger. It's like that old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
You might have just invented a new Coca-Cola slogan there.
Well, if they're looking for a new brand ambassador, I'm available. But all jokes aside, I think this deep dive into Coca-Cola's Q3 earnings call has been a fascinating look at a company that's not just surviving, but thriving in a really complex and ever-changing world.
I agree. I think it's given us a lot to think about.
It has.
Welcome back to Talk Ticker. So we've talked a lot about, Coca-Cola's financial performance, their strategic moves.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about their brand.
Okay.
Coca-Cola is more than just a drink. It's a cultural icon.
It really is.
It's a global symbol of, happiness, refreshment, connection.
Yeah, and they're in almost every country in the world, right?
Yeah.
It transcends languages, cultures, even political divides. It's pretty amazing.
It really is.
And they've managed to stay relevant for over a century.
Right.
Which is no easy feat in a world that's constantly bombarded with, new products and trends. So how do they do it? How do they stay top of mind?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
First of all, they have a really deep understanding of their consumers.
Right.
They know what people want. They know what resonates with them on an emotional level.
Yeah.
And they're constantly evolving their marketing to, really tap into those desires.
Like we talked about earlier with the Olympics and Paralympics.
Right.
They went beyond just, basic product placement.
Exactly.
They created these experiences that celebrated the spirit of the games.
Yeah.
Connected with people on a deeper level.
And they're doing that with their other brands, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Topo Chico.
Uh-huh.
They're creating these events, experiences, content
Yeah.
that aligns with their target audience's interests and values.
It's not just about selling a product, it's about building a community, a shared experience.
Exactly.
I like that.
And that's also where their investment in, digital and social media comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're using those platforms to connect with consumers in new ways,
Yeah.
to create conversations, to build loyalty.
Smart.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to experiment either.
No.
Think about those limited edition releases we talked about earlier.
With Oreo and the Beetlejuice.
Right, Coca-Cola, Zero Sugar, Oreo, Fanta, Beetlejuice. I mean, they're tapping into pop culture. They're creating buzz. They're generating excitement.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it's a really smart way to keep the brand fresh and relevant.
And it shows that they don't take themselves too seriously,
Right.
which I think is important.
It is.
They're willing to have fun, play with their image, connect with consumers on a more playful level.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of why they've been so successful for so long.
Makes sense.
In a world that's increasingly cynical and jaded, Coca-Cola offers that little dose of optimism.
That's true. Yeah.
That reminder that life can be fun and enjoyable.
The feel-good factor.
Exactly, and that keeps people coming back for more.
Yeah, and, despite all the challenges they face, the economic headwinds, shifting consumer trends, I'm still really confident that Coca-Cola is going to continue to be a powerhouse for many years to come.
Yeah, I mean, they have the brand recognition, the strategic vision, and the marketing savvy to adapt and thrive in almost any environment.
It's impressive.
It is, and it's a good lesson for any business.
True, whether you're a big global company or a small startup.
Yeah, so as we wrap up this section, I guess the question is, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners today? What can they learn from Coca-Cola's success?
Good question.
Well, I think it comes down to the importance of balancing short-term agility with long-term vision.
Okay, that's okay.
So be prepared to adapt to changing circumstances,
Yeah.
but never lose sight of your core values and your ultimate goals.
Makes sense. And I think the other big takeaway is, that connection. Connecting with your audience on an emotional level is just as important as, delivering a quality product or service.
Exactly. Coca-Cola gets that.
Yeah.
And it's a big reason why they've been able to stay relevant for so long.
So as you're thinking about your own investments, your business strategies,
Right.
take a page from Coca-Cola's playbook.
Yeah.
They're a company that's worth studying, not just for their financial performance, but for their ability to connect with people all over the world.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Talk Tickers. As we wrap up our deep dive into Coca-Cola's Q3 2024 earnings call, I keep thinking about how resilient they are. They're not just surviving out there. They're thriving in a world that feels like it's constantly throwing economic curveballs at us.
It's true. It really speaks to their strategic agility and their deep understanding of consumer behavior. They know how to adapt to these shifting trends, whether it's embracing new technologies or creating innovative marketing campaigns.
Yeah, we saw that with their revamped marketing model, that blend of digital, live, and retail experiences. And we can't forget about their push into new product categories. I'm thinking of that Bacardi mixed with Coca-Cola launch that's coming in 2025.
Right. It's a bold move.
It really is.
Yeah.
Shows they're not afraid to take risks.
Yeah. And they're not afraid to innovate within their existing portfolio either. Like all those limited edition releases, the Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Oreo, the Fanta Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
It keeps things fresh and exciting.
Keeps people talking.
Yeah, definitely. Which is so crucial for a brand that's been around as long as Coca-Cola has.
It's like they found the fountain of youth for their brand, constantly reinventing themselves, but staying true to those core values.
Yeah.
But, we got to talk about the elephant in the room,
Okay.
sustainability.
Yeah.
I mean, Coca-Cola has faced some criticism for their environmental impact, their contribution to the global sugar crisis. How are they addressing those concerns?
It's a big question. I mean, it's a critical question for any company these days. Consumers want more accountability. Investors are more and more focused on ESG factors. And yeah, Coke has made some strides in reducing their environmental footprint and offering some healthier beverage options. But there's always more work to be done.
Yeah, I mean, they've set some pretty ambitious goals for water stewardship, packaging sustainability, reducing the sugar content in their products, and they're investing in R&D to create new, more sustainable packaging solutions.
Right, and it's a journey. It's not like they just flip a switch and everything's perfect. It takes continuous effort and innovation, but it seems like they're committed to making progress. I mean, they understand that their long-term success is tied to aligning their business practices with what the world needs.
And that's a message that resonates, I think, with both investors and consumers. People want to support companies that are doing good in the world while they're also doing well. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Coca-Cola, I'm cautiously optimistic. They've got challenges, but they're taking steps to address them. And with their strong brand, their innovative spirit, their strategic agility, I'm confident that they can navigate the crazy world of the global marketplace.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do next. I mean, they're a company in constant motion, always evolving, always pushing boundaries. What new innovations will they come up with? What surprises are they going to have in store?
Yeah, I'm excited to find out. And that wraps up this earnings call deep dive here on Talk Tickers. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of Coca-Cola. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the companies that are shaping the world around us.